Welcome to my front yard garden. What you see here is mostly native wildflowers that were planted by seeds. These have developed over the last 3 years. Some are perennial, some are annual, but they reseed themselves and come back a little bit thicker every year. This area requires virtually no maintenance except for a little bit of cleanup in the very early spring of some of the old stuff. We leave everything that browns out and dies out over winter up for all of the insects and the birds. We clean it up a little bit in the spring, and then that is it. We also don't water this area. We haven't in about 1.5 years, and we don't plan to this year. Tried to rein in the wildness by creating a fence up front, so it gives the illusion that there's some sort of like control here. So we have some boundaries. These rocks out front, this is kind of meant for cars to be able to pull in and still be able to get out without being attacked by flowers. The grass needs to be cleaned up. We'll use some 20% vinegar solution to get that. Oh, there's Chi-Chi. So down here, all of these flowers were self-seeded. None of these were planted by me. All of this area was supposed to be buffalo grass, which is super drought tolerant and a native grass for our area in Texas. So I've got some additional plantings up front, like the skullcap and the blackfoot daisy that we planted as kind of a border idea, but the wildflowers have their own idea and have totally taken over. So again, this was supposed to be buffalo grass. It really was for the first 2 years. We've had so much rain since the fall. I think everything else is just doing really well. Buffalo grass actually doesn't like to be super wet, so I think it's not going to come in until maybe it dries off some. And then we have our dry riverbed. This isn't really for drainage. This is just, again, to kind of give some definition between the different spaces, which when you're working with native plantings and you have a lot of different things going on, if you don't want it to look like a vacant lot or an overgrown mess, it's kind of important to give some natural looking boundaries. So this was a turf area. Now we have our rocks here. This stays really clean. We really don't have any maintenance, very little weeding. That's because these rocks are about 5 inches deep, and then weed fabric and then sand under that. It's really hard for anything to grow in that much rock. If you put less than 4 inches, you're always gonna have weeds. So again, more perennials. This was a bad choice. Way too big for this pathway. We have to trim it and shape it. I'll put a little fence up at some point, but it's an amazing plant for hummingbirds, so it'll stay. This is a native Texas coral bean. Obedient plant. Wow, you want a plant that really spreads and takes over and just dominates. This is the one for you. It blooms heavily in the fall. It's going to shoot up giant purple bloom stalks, but it is aggressive and it takes over. So we put it at the end so that it would have some borders where it couldn't cross, but it's still creeping inward quickly. I've had to rescue a few plants like that Gara way up front that it was getting swallowed by, but super drought tolerant, great in the sun. Back here we have some shade, so a little more traditional hostas, just because, they're kind of really pretty. So I have a few things that aren't native just for my own personal enjoyment, and those are usually around pathways, so we can appreciate them when we're walking through. Got some wood ferns, columbine. A lot of this is horse herb, which is a native ground cover that we didn't plant. It's here naturally. Our dog loves to eat it. It's great. Dies back some when it's really hot and really dry, but works as a great ground cover. Got some additional grasses, shrubs, flowering shrubs, sweet spire, which again isn't native to here, but just butterflies just go crazy for it in the spring. So we've had it here. A toad lily, which I haven't tried before, but we have one at the nursery and it's gorgeous. This is a whole work in progress. This is our rain garden that will eventually be planted out. Got a trellis with a kind of a sad American wisteria. I'm gonna try some clematis here soon. Salvias, sages, very hardy, lots of colors, really, really easy to maintain. So this is probably my favorite part of the yard. We get to walk through this path. It was really put here so that the mailman could kind of cut through the garden without having to take a longer route, and so that we could get in and do weeding and stuff like that without having to trample our plantings. So you want to make sure if you're doing a lot of plantings like this that you still give yourself some room to walk in between them, do weeding, do additional plantings without disturbing things. We have recently remulched. That's why it looks this fabulous. I love cedar mulch. We'll do it less and less each year as these plantings grow in and take up space. It's a little bit of some of our rocks at the head of our riverbed. This is Copper Canyon daisy, which they call the mosquito plant. It's supposed to help repel mosquitoes. We've got a lot of plants in here that help a little bit. I don't know if it's an end all, but they do attract things like dragonflies, which eat a ton of mosquitoes. So that's really great. Pretty little lily. Oh, a speaker. We like to play music and pull weeds at night in the summer when it's really, really hot. Too hot to enjoy doing it during the day. Agastache, a hummingbird plant, one of my absolute favorites. Smells amazing. This huge guy here, he was just a sad little 1 gallon last summer, and it's about 12 to 15 square feet of flowers at this point, and attracts more small bees and native bees than just about anything else I have. Horse mint is gorgeous. Basket of flowers are starting to bloom. Things here in Texas are a little bit behind. We're about 3 weeks behind, I think, where they were last year. It's just been cool and rainy and a little bit different than usual. So all of this area was started about 3 years ago and was irrigated with a drip irrigation system up until last year. Last year we turned everything off, and I feel that unless we have extreme drought situations, we really won't need it anymore. We'll use it for new plantings when they come in, but that is less and less now as everything is maturing. This side over here is completely unirrigated, neglected. We don't do anything over here at all. Seeded this at the same time 3 years ago, and nothing happened for the first 2 years. Sparse grass, a lot of dirt, some stickers. Something we were going to work on a little bit later, but this year, probably with all the rain, the wildflower seeds that we put over here finally just really took off and exploded. I mean, this fence is about 3.5 feet tall. Flowers are taking it over. So we've got a really interesting split between two dominant species, the one that's more sun loving and then one that does more shade in the back. So it creates a really kind of interesting differentiation all by itself. The gardens change all through the summer and spring, and gradually just looks really nice all the time, except the winter. Winter is brown and gray and bronze, and not my favorite time of year in the garden, but in Texas it doesn't last long, so thankfully. But here, these plants do really well. Most everything here is super happy in the heat. A lot of these natives are from further south, Texas, West Texas, so they're very heat and drought tolerant, and so we really haven't had much issues with summer extremes or things going dormant in the summer or anything like that. Well, thanks for watching. Say bye, Chi Chi.